Sunday School lesson number 1, The Road to Emmaus. And before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and ask that you grab a pair of glasses, or they can be goggles or binoculars or anything that helps you see things better or more clearly. Because later on in our story, there's going to be an important line that we're going to focus on. And when that line happens, we're going to pause our story, put on our glasses, and then we'll recite a phrase. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the line that's important that we need to focus on now. And it's their eyes were opened and they recognized him, which is Luke 24:31. And when we hear this line in our story, we're going to stop what we're doing, put on our glasses, and we are going to yell out the phrase together. Our eyes are open and we recognize him. So when that happens, we'll just pause real quick and we'll put on our glasses and we'll do that together, okay? Perfect. So I guess it wasn't last weekend, but 2 weekends ago, we celebrated a holiday, and that was Easter, right? So for Easter, we got to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus, or basically Jesus coming back to life. And during that time, important news was spread by word of mouth, which means that they didn't have the internet. You couldn't just call up somebody and say, hey, I heard something cool and I wanted to share it with you. If somebody wanted to learn new information, it had to be walked. A person had to go from Jerusalem all the way to the other cities to kind of share the news. So it could take a really long time for information to be spread that way. It could be months before you found new information. So with that in mind, I'm going to tell you about 2 travelers, Cleopas and his friends, who had kind of taken it upon themselves to spread that Jesus had been passed away. So this story starts, and Cleopas and his friend were actually in Jerusalem, which is where Jesus had gone basically to kind of spread his teachings, and it was just kind of like a big exciting time because everybody wanted to be around Jesus. So, unfortunately, that week started off on a really high note. There was a big parade. Everybody had waved palm fronds. It was all exciting. And then by the end of that week, Jesus had been crucified and had passed away. And so people were kind of all over the board. They went from really, really happy throwing a parade to all of a sudden having a funeral and having to mourn the loss of their really important teacher, who they thought was the Messiah or the Son of God. So people's emotions were all over the board. So after Jesus had passed away, of course, we know they had wrapped him in linen and put him in the tomb. And then a few days later, Mary Magdalene and a group of women had a group of angels appear to them and tell them that Jesus was still alive. So, of course, everybody rushes down there. They're all excited, but the tomb is empty. So by this time, Cleopas is like, you know what? I think Jesus really has passed away and he's not coming back. So he decided that he and his friend were going to pack up all of their belongings and head back to Emmaus. So that morning, they are ready to go. They have hit the road. They are walking along the road to Emmaus. And a few hours in, a stranger stops and asks them if he can travel with them. Now, Cleopas is like, sure, of course, you may travel with us. Safety in numbers, feel free. Now, this stranger realizes very quickly that Cleopas and his friend are kind of upset. They're sad, they're not talking a lot. So he goes ahead and he asks them, hey, what's going on? Why are you so upset? You look kind of down in the dumps. So Cleopas, of course, shares all that's been happening this week. The parade, the death of Jesus, how disappointed they were when they found the tomb empty, and how Cleopas and his friends kind of thought, well, maybe Jesus wasn't the Son of God then. So this was kind of big news because, I mean, for everybody forever was like, Jesus is the new king. He is, all the prophets have told he is coming. So that's kind of a hard thing to take in, is that all of a sudden the person that you believed was the Son of God maybe isn't. So the stranger starts talking with them and he's like, well, I guess that could be true that Jesus has passed away. And I know that's a hard thing to understand. But didn't Micah, the prophet Micah, say that the new king would be born in the town of Bethlehem? And Cleopas is like, yeah, that's right. Micah did say that. And then Jesus of Nazareth was born in Bethlehem, right? So Cleopas goes, yes, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. That's true. That's why we thought he was a prophet. And then the stranger goes on and asks, well, then didn't Moses also say that God had told him that the Son of God would come from a common man? And wasn't Jesus' dad a carpenter? Jesus' dad wasn't a king, so a carpenter is just an everyday person, right? So Cleopas is like, yeah, that's true. The prophets did say that he would be born of a common man, that he wouldn't, and that our new king would come from the everyday people. And then the stranger brings up kind of one more prophet, the prophet Isaiah. And he says, didn't Isaiah say that the new king would have to be familiar with pain and would have to suffer in his lifetime? And that sounds to me kind of like what Jesus went through. Because Jesus had to be crucified, and he had to go through having his friend betray him, which is a lot of like really painful things. So I guess that would mean that Isaiah was right, and Jesus had to suffer first before he kind of take on his role as the Messiah. So Cleopas and his friend kind of look at each other, and you're like, you know what? This stranger knows a lot of really good information about Jesus and all the prophets and everything. He must be a rabbi or a teacher or something. So we should really listen to what he is sharing with us. So they decide, you know what? We'll go ahead and we'll think on this. We'll think about all these important information that you have shared with us. So they start traveling along some more, and the day passes, and it's starting to now get into nightfall. And Cleopas and his friend kind of ask the stranger, well, are you stopping here? Are you just going to Emmaus? And the stranger's like, no, I've got lots more traveling to do. I'm just in the middle of my adventure, so to speak. So Cleopas and his friend were like, well, before you go any further, why don't you come home with us and we can share a meal together? You have to eat before traveling any further. So the stranger comes in, and they set all their things down, and they start to get dinner ready. They've got bread and cheese and wine and all the good stuff that you need after a big, long walk all day long. So Cleopas and his friend asked the stranger if he would mind blessing the meal. I mean, he's shown a lot of knowledge, so he must be a rabbi or a teacher or something like that. So the new teacher, the stranger, says, of course, I'd be happy to bless this meal. So he blesses it with prayer, and then he starts to take the bread and he passes it out to everybody. And when he passes it out, Cleopas and his friend look at each other, and their eyes are like wide open in shock almost, because their eyes were opened and they recognized him. They realized that he was Jesus. That was our phrase, right? Okay, so really quick, everybody take their glasses or their goggles, and we'll put it on, and I'll repeat the phrase so we can say it back, okay? Their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And do you remember what we're supposed to say? That's right. We're supposed to say, our eyes were opened, and we recognize him. So let's try that one more time. I'll say their phrase, and then you say our phrase, okay? Their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And now you say, our eyes are opened, and we recognize him. Good job, guys. Okay, so we can take this off, and we'll continue with our story. So they have recognized that this stranger, this teacher that they've been with all day long, is actually Jesus. So they turn back around, all excited, and he has disappeared. So they are looking around under the table. Where could he be? And he's completely gone. So his friend turns to Cleopas, and the friend says, Cleopas, we have to go back to Jerusalem. We've got to tell his disciples that we have seen Jesus too. So Cleopas says, okay, first we will finish our dinner that Jesus has blessed, and then we will get back on the road to Jerusalem. So they eat really quickly, and they grab their bags, and they head back to Jerusalem to spread the news that they too have seen Jesus and that he has come back to life. Now, that was kind of a strange story, right? Because you would think if somebody's really important and everybody looked up to him, they would recognize him, right? But these two men, they didn't recognize Jesus when they saw him. And I think that might be a little bit because they thought that Jesus was dead, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you saw somebody and you didn't recognize them because they didn't expect them to be there? That's happened to me sometimes. When I was little, I used to go to a grocery store around here. I went to Briarwood Elementary, and so I used to go to that hen house. And one day as I was grocery shopping with my mom, my teacher from school came in, and I saw her, and it totally took me back because it took me a moment to recognize her because I didn't expect to see her at the grocery store. So I think that definitely is true in life. So what we're going to do now is there are some worksheets and some coloring pages that are attached to this link that you can do. And we're also thought you guys could possibly play a game. And for this game, all you need is a whole bunch of doodads. You can grab all sorts of things from all over your house and a blindfold. So what I did is I just grabbed this box here and I filled it with a whole bunch of stuff. I've got a squeezy ball, a chip clip bag. I've got a fun straw in there. Oop, I've even got a crazy looking ponytail. And what we're going to do is you're going to put the blindfold over your eyes, reach into the box, and then you're trying to guess what those things are without having to see them. I mean, this is something I use every day. I use a ponytail holder every single day pretty much. But I don't know if I just stuck my hand in there and grabbed it out, if I'd be able to recognize it. So we're going to kind of talk about that today. We've got some talking parts in our information that we're sharing that you guys can talk about with your parents and a game to play as well, okay? Well, I'm so excited you guys were able to come to my kitchen today. It doesn't look like much, but I'm excited that you are here. And next week we will focus on another story from our Bible lessons, okay? Bye, everyone. It was so nice to see you.